Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening of music and meditation. Some quick introduction. My name's Alan Richards, and we're indeed fortunate to have Stephen Day as our special guest this evening. Steve and I both have been practicing Sahaja Yoga for most of our lives, for many decades, and we're going to hear I hope to hear some stories from Steve about his musical journey and his journey in Sahaja Yoga too. Steve is a professional musician, storyteller, composer. He's won many awards throughout his career. He has devoted his life to music, and along the way received a lot of encouragement and guidance from Srimataji Nirmala Devi, who is the founder of Sahaja Yoga. And we're looking forward to hearing those stories. Music is a very important part of Sahaja Yoga. It's a direct connection between the divine or the spirit or whatever you want to call it, whatever the subtle within us, which sometimes gets lost in the material life that we live. It's a way to pierce through that, not through thoughts or understanding in the brain, but directly to the heart. And it's a universal thing. It's a direct connection, and as such has an important place inside yoga. Indian classical music particularly has a connection because of the way that it interacts with our subtle being within us. And we're going to hear a little bit more about that this evening. In order that we can get the best benefit from this connection, as Stephen plays for us this evening, we're going to go through a short 5-minute meditation exercise just to feel the calm inside ourselves so that we can really receive this music. Indian classical music is very subtle and very complex in a way. and so we need to be calm inside, quiet inside, that we can receive and open ourselves up to this. So we're going to go through a short meditation exercise to try to establish that feeling of calm inside ourselves. I'm going to show some slides, but if you like, you can watch the slides or you can close your eyes, because I'll explain what we need to do as we go along. So let me share my screen. Just a second. Okay, sorry about that. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. I'll just make it full screen. So Sahaja Yoga meditation was founded in 1970 by Srimati Nirmala Devi. It's a simple technique. All that's required for it is a desire to understand why we're here, what our place is on earth. And since 1970, Srimati traveled all over the world, giving programs telling people about her unique discovery. Sahaja Yoga is always free. There's never any money involved in it. And it's something that can happen en masse. It's an experience, not something that you can force to happen. You just need to be open to it. So as we go through this short exercise this evening, all I ask is that you be open to it. For those of us who come from the West, may not have heard of this system. I hadn't when I first encountered it. But if it works for you, if you feel calmer at the end, if you feel peace inside, then give it a try and see what you feel as a scientific hypothesis. So inside us is a subtle system of chakras and channels. There are 7 chakras, each of which corresponds to certain functions in the body, but also to certain emotions, certain of the building blocks which make us up. Each one has different functions and different qualities. And there are 3 channels, a left side, which is the power of desire, a right side, which is the power of action, and the center, which is evolution. And at the base of the spine, at the lowest chakra, there's a mother energy, which can be awakened. And that's really what yoga is, what meditation is. Meditation is not something you do, it's something that you experience, a state that you're in. So that when it's awakened, this Kundalini energy, as it's called, rises up through each of the chakras and restores those chakras to their proper functioning. Because as we live in the world, things affect us, and whether it's on the emotional side or the physical side, there are things to be cleaned out, and the Kundalini does that job automatically. When the Kundalini reaches the center in the head, shown on this diagram in the forehead, there's a gap created in our thoughts. So that is really what meditation is. It's an experience of being thoughtless, of not having a constant stream of activity in our brain. It's something that we may experience for short periods of time. We might remember from childhood when we just played without thinking about everything. But it's an experience of being thoughtless and not being in any way cut off from the world, actually being more alert and aware, but not having that stream of thoughts. And the goal of Sahaja Yoga is to stretch that out to longer periods of time and get the full benefit from it. When the Kundalini passes up to the very top of the head, where that lotus is drawn, that's when the connection is made. So we're going to go through a quick exercise. We're going to put our right hand on each of those centers one by one and focus on that. As I say, you can close your eyes if you like, because I'll explain what we're going to do at each stage. So sit comfortably. You should be comfortable, feet flat on the ground, but not strained in any way. We're going to start with our both hands resting on our lap with our palms upwards. And then we're going to take our right hand and place it over our heart on the left-hand side. And the heart is where our spirit resides. So we just inside ourselves silently ask ourselves, this is where my spirit resides. I want to be connected to my true self. I want to be one with my spirit. I want to fill my heart with love, compassion, and joy. So let's just take our attention inside ourselves, try to stop mental activity, and just inside ourselves say, I want to be one with my spirit. The next chakra, we'll move our right hand, slide it down to the middle of the left side, opposite the navel. And for this center, we'll say the following. I want to be positive change. I want to be the force of positive change within me. Please help me to feel satisfied and contented. Please let me experience peace within me. So this is the center of nourishment, satisfaction, and contentment. Let's keep our right hand over that area and take our attention inside and just try to feel contented. The next chakra will slide the right hand further down to just above the left hip. This center will say, I want positive attention and positive growth. Please remove all negative thoughts and ideas from my attention. Please soothe my attention. So this is the center where our attention is built. And it's also the center of creativity. So just close your eyes, focus on that center. Please may I have the pure knowledge, the pure attention. Let's bring the right hand back up onto the heart. And this is the center. The heart is our center for confidence, security, courage. So at this point, we'll ask the mother energy, the Kundalini, please remove all fears, insecurities, and anxieties in me. Let me trust myself and my own abilities. Let me be a confident person. Please help me to feel safe, protected, and loved. Please remove all fears, insecurities, and anxieties from me. Now we're going to take our right hand up onto our left shoulder, just in the bend between the shoulder and the neck. Turn our head to the right slightly. You can grip your shoulder. And here we say, I'm not guilty. I'm not this guilt. I am pure self-esteem and self-respect. I want to be respectful to myself and to everyone else. And then praying to the mother energy, Mother, please give me the power of sweetness. Now take the right hand up across the forehead, sideways, squeeze a little bit across the forehead. And this is the center for forgiveness. And say, I'm not this ego or these conditionings. I am the power of forgiveness. I forgive myself and I forgive everyone else. I let go and I forgive everyone. And the final step, we'll put our right hand right on top of the head, press down a little bit with the center of the palm, addressing the Mother Kundalini energy. Mother, please give me my self-realization. And you can bring both hands down, resting on our lap with palms upwards. And just for a couple of minutes, we'll just bring our attention inside ourselves, just in the silence. So for anyone who might have come for the first time, who's interested in following up on this, here are some links: meditateanytime.com or texasmeditation.org. Any of those will lead you to further information on this. So with that, I'm going to ask Steve if he's ready to start his presentation.
Just tuning up a little bit there. If you give me just another 30 seconds or a minute just to meditate in silence, that'd be good.
Okay, so I believe that Steve has both some a raga to play for us and a song, and there's also going to be a little bit of storytelling about his experiences of traveling with Shamash-ji, and a little bit of conversation between him and I. Both of us were fortunate to have had that experience of being in Shamash-ji's company, and I'm interested to hear to hear Steve's recollections of those times. So let us know when you're ready. The instrument that Stephen plays is a sarod. It's one of the most difficult instruments to play, a very ancient Indian instrument. Steve, thank you so much. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
I wonder if I could ask you a couple of questions, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about the instrument you're playing first. It looks very complicated, and it seems it doesn't have frets. So tell us about the sarod.
Sure. This road doesn't have any frets, as you see, and that gives us the chance to. I'm just going to adjust the mic a little bit. It's slipping away, and slipping away is a metaphor for what we do on Road because basically it's slides and glides. You slide your fingernail across the fretboard, and then. So use your fingernail, if you can see it, and you slide across, and then ding, 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 ding. You get this murki sound, which is a lot of little notes that stimulate the chakras, and particularly the sasrara. This particular raga is called Rag Dadbadi, and it's for the sasrara, so it opens the sasrara in particular. So that's one of the reasons I play it so much these days. It's a good opening, deep piece, especially for Saturday night. And there are a lot of connections to our folk music or rock music, as well as deeper connections to other styles and types of music. As I played at the end, I played first some compositions from Ustad Amjad Ali Khan, who I studied with, who has now 8 generations of sarod players. He plays with his 2 sons and his 2 grandsons. They're kind of the pride of India. There's 5 sarod players on stage in the same family. But this other compositions where I played a piece from Stairway to Heaven, a famous rock song, one of the most famous classic rock songs, which is actually based on a raga, which may or may not have been known by the writers. I'm not sure if Jimmy Page knew that, but he probably did in some level. And then Binati Suniye, which is a Hindi song. So there's a broad range. The raga goes deep, and it then touches the depths of the roots of music, and then we find the branches in many other manifestations, even Christmas carols, which I didn't play tonight, but that's okay.
So I want to ask you, how do you feel when you play? A lot of musicians or even sports people talk about being in the zone, that they're sort of in the flow as they play. Is that something that I mean, obviously can relate to the thoughtlessness that we talk about in Sahaja Yoga?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no doubt about it. It is a way. A way forward. And sorry if I'm adjusting the mic. I hope that didn't make any sounds. Yeah, it's the way forward. Many musicians, this is their path. This is the way that they connect to the divine. And the pursuit of perfect sound is part of that. Swad, Ishwad is a favorite quote of my teachers, Amjad Ali Khan. Swad is note, sound actually, and Ishwad is God. So Swad, Ishwad. So to find God through the sound. So, how do I feel? I feel, this brings me into a deeper balanced state. It gets me closer to, I feel, myself. And of course, from the Sahaj point of view, it opens up different chakras and facilitates the deeper connection to oneself as a result. So it's good, very much, recommended if you can. There's all kinds of good music, but this can be very good for your meditation. To get into a habit of putting on some classical Indian music can be really good as part of your music diet every day.
That's very nice that it flows through you, puts you into meditation, and then flows to us and puts us into meditation too.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about your musical journey and your journey in Sahaja Yoga and how they're connected. And my story is I'm an architect, and I probably wouldn't have followed through with architecture when I was in college if it hadn't been for the encouragement of Shrimataji. And I wonder if you could tell us about your start in music.
Yeah, well, it really started. It's funny. It started a little later because I was very athletic as a young guy. So sports occupied a lot of my time, and I was interested in guitar and I played guitar, but the guitar really came as part of my seeking and part of my journey. And there's a lot of different evolutions of that. To the point where I don't know which part to go in because I can't do it all in one session. But I've got the part where I found out about Sahaj Yoga, which we could pick that, or we could talk about it a little bit later. But let's do that because I think there are people here that are maybe here for the first time or pretty new. So the way I found Sahaj Yoga was very much through music, but in a different kind of way. I was basically studying Spanish guitar in a conservatory, and before that, I was at a professional, like a McGill University. It was in Canada, which is like a Ivy League style college, and I was taking about the hardest course load I possibly could, a double honors major in math and economics. You see, I wanted to live up to my father's dreams, and I wanted to kind of do one up on him and beat him to his punch. He's a Harvard professor, and he was a Harvard graduate, and he was a full professor at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver. And he and I, to say, I suppose that that being a firstborn son of someone of such a stature was put pressure on me would be an understatement. I think it definitely more than I realized. I was driven to try to sort of outdo him, but never really felt I kind of could. So one time, for instance, I was high school running back, and I went down the field in a key drive, and it was a key drive in a key game, and I fumbled the ball. I could feel, the guy's hand, the defender, just stripped it from me. Later that day, when we talked in the kitchen, I said, "Dad, did you go to the game?" I said, "Yeah, it was a good game. Too bad about that guy who fumbled the ball in the key drive. Who was that guy anyway?" I said, "Dad, that was me." Yeah. Awkward silence ensued. He made it to the game, but he didn't know my number. So when I got back to McGill the second year, I looked at the board at the end of the year. They post all the grades, and I noticed, I think I saw a B up there, and I wasn't quite sure. I checked my number. They blot out your name and put your number down, and I checked again. A B. I mean, I never get B's. I never got a B. That's impossible. So that, and coupled with the fact that a couple friends of mine were leaving, citing that the place made them feel kind of like a number rather than a human being, and the cold of the winters wasn't only outside. I realized it was starting to affect my soul. I felt frozen inside. So I got a plan. I decided to go to southern Spain and Portugal because I had heard that there were Romani people, otherwise known at the time called gypsies, and they played guitar every night. They danced around the fire, and they were nomads. They lived in caravans. So that I thought, well, hey, that sounds like the life to me. So I hitchhiked across Europe. I grew my hair a little bit, and I arrived in Lisbon. Beautiful European city with cobblestone streets and trams and green parks, statues, monuments. Every day I would, go to the fields, go to the grass, play in the park. Kept getting better at guitar, wrote the philosophy of my life on letters that I would send back home. And I think my dad was probably the only one who actually read those letters. It's quite possible. Anyway, one of those days I saw a couple guys coming towards me, and I got closer and I recognized them to be Romani people, Romani gypsies. And I thought, this is it. This is the opportunity I was waiting for. See, I'd bought a guitar, a really nice guitar, before leaving. It had pearl inlay, and I thought, well, this will be a great chance because they'll want to jam, and I'll get to know them, and then I'll get invited to the caravans. So the stout one, the sort of smaller one, kind of muscly, came up and said, "Does your dog bite?" I said, no, I was really being extra friendly. No, no, not at all. Would you like to pet him? And I said, no, passed on that opportunity. My dog was a kind of medium height, friendly dog, black fur, just real friendly, loved the sun. And then he asked the question I was waiting for. Can I play your guitar? Because I was ready to get some riffs. I mean, Spanish guitar. I wanted to see, I knew about Raschiato on the right hand. I knew scales and modes on the left hand. I just wanted to see what a real gypsy played like. So as I handed it to him, I was more than excited. I'd really come all the way really for this moment. And then he picked it up, and then he only played it just strummed it once. And then quite abruptly said, "It is my guitar." I looked at him and my dog that didn't bite and realized it was his guitar. Now, I was kind of a scrappy guy. I wasn't, a pushover. Most of the time I would, get up and maybe argue with him and try to get it back and maybe even fight him. I played hockey. I played football. But this time, for whatever reason, I suppose it was the Portuguese sun or the mood I was in, the kind of mood of letting go, of surrendering. I just watched as he walked away with my guitar, with my dog by my side, just wagging his tail, enjoying the sun. I lasted a few months. I got a Spanish guitar the next day at a flea market and, had some travel time, but I knew I was never going to get to live in those caravans. So I went back to Vancouver, and I went and enrolled in the university my dad taught at, and lived back with my parents. They had a course there called Altered States of Consciousness, and I thought, oh, this could be it, because I had become interested in Indian philosophy at that point. So I used to carpool. I was going up there with my dad, and Vancouver is kind of wet, but it's not as cold. And I did have the comfort of home, so that was nice. About halfway through the course, I saw a little yellow poster on the wall, and it was advertising Sahaja Yoga, and it had a photo of Srimataji. And it drew me in, and I started to read it. It was a short excerpt. But as I read it, I started to have a kind of a vision and a feeling in my heart of warmth, friendliness and comfort and an inviting feeling. Envisioned a group of people. I could actually have it in my mind's eye, about 10 people in a circle and drinking tea and just a real cozy feeling. So I took the number down and thought, this is something I definitely gonna, call and check out. And after a few days, unfortunately with the deadlines and the homework, and I was still kind of obsessed with the course I was in, thinking there might be an answer with that, I lost the number. Got to the end of the semester, and then when the dust settled, I realized I really kind of hit rock bottom. I had traded, a double major I had no major anymore. I think it was general ed. I had, been living in exotic countries and a big city, and then now I was back living at home in my father's basement, like I did when I was a kid. So, I really didn't know it just seemed like I had paid such a high price to search for something that I really had no evidence that it existed, and it hadn't given me anything concrete. It was a very kind of desperate moment. But right when I hit rock bottom, that's when it hit me, and I remembered the poster, and in a flash, I ran. I sped up the staircases. I flew down the halls, and I almost knocked someone over. And then I just flew around a corridor, and then there it was, that bulletin board where that poster was. So it looked like it was covered over. I didn't see it right away. So I clawed and I scraped and I peeled all the posters as much as I could. I was getting exhausted. I'd just run across campus, and I started to realize, rooms for rent, textbooks for sale, and new courses to take, but no poster. This was the key drive of my life. It wasn't just a football game. This time, the ball I had fumbled really hit me hard. And being exhausted, I think I either passed out or just slumped down on the floor and immediately fell asleep. And about 20 minutes later, I was awakened by a kind of a light that awoke me, and I started to see that it was bouncing off a glass case across from me. I didn't even notice it. I hadn't noticed it when I got there because I'd been running so fast and I was so excited. But I followed that beam, and as I got closer, I recognized it was the yellow poster. It was Sribaji. And someone had taken it, and specifically taken it knowing that it would get covered, being on a college campus. And there it was. And so this time I didn't take much time to read it. And I just called the number.
Mm.
Hi, is there a meditation, a free meditation? I read about it. Yeah, tomorrow? Great, I'll be there. So it's March 17th, 1987, St. Patrick's Day. The luck of the Irish was with me. And I go to the meeting, and I feel, I could feel it. I could feel the energy, not a lot at first, but then I could start to feel the Kundalini rise up through my central nervous system, and I started to feel a cool sensation on this cool breeze. And I knew that I had found what I had been looking for, and it was only half a mile from my childhood home.
Mm.
And I could not only sensed it within, but I could feel it in my body and feel it on my fingertips, and I could feel it on the palms of my hands.
That's a wonderful story.
Yeah. Yeah, people ask, what about my dad? Whatever happened? Well, we get along great now. I wrote him a song for his last birthday, and I did finish university. I finished with a double major, just not an honors major, and it was economics and math, and no math. Sorry, it was economics and music. And he and I, we do definitely see eye to eye now, and also in spirituality. So it's a really amazing tale, not only of the time that happened when I was in my early 20s, but years later, that through sort of decades of practice of Sahaja Yoga, I was able to, finish the degree and then kind of, I guess, repair, but overcome some of the, the pressures that I had felt as a young person, and what that created, and the conflict that had created within me. Over years, I think of playing music and following my dream, but also doing Sahaj meditation as well as this Indian music and other types of music. I was able to kind of open up my my sort of other side of myself, and then integrate that and balance that with the more analytical side, the more practical side, the economics and math kind of guy side. So yeah, it's not only a story about their self-realization, but it ends up being, over the course of time, how it ends up using Sahaj meditation to balance myself and my life and my relationships around me.
That's I wanted to ask you a bit more about how your musical journey grew and how Sahaja Yoga influenced that. But do you want to play another piece? Do you want to have a
Sure.
song?
Yeah, and then we can touch on that. So I was just going to play a little bit of, this is a good example of how, since this is the day of the Shiva, the weekend of the Shiva power, the heart chakra, I don't know how much time we have, so it gets a little bit, it does take some time. I'll play a little bit of that, and, I think we probably can take our time here, I'm not sure. This piece, it's beautiful how the ragas, you just tune a couple notes differently. And they become different pieces. So this is a tuning that allows us to go into a different space.
Thank you, Steve. That was beautiful.
Yeah, that's the Shiva. It's called Rag Bhairav.
So I know there's so many stories and so many things we could talk about, but I wanted to sort of cut to the chase a little bit
Yeah.
and talk about Shrimataji and what it was like to be in her company and how she inspired you to take on this huge challenge of learning such a difficult instrument. Or have you?
Uh, yeah. Yeah, that part happened, and yeah, cut to the chase. Um, is you know, I was a guitar player and I played kind of fusion guitar. I was writing songs. I was practicing Sahaja Yoga, and I was doing a lot of different things to help what we call the collective, and also Shrimataji was visiting every year to Vancouver where I was living. So I was helping, and I drove Shrimataji to the airport. And one time we rented an RV and drove from Vancouver to Seattle. And so had a lot of experiences to the point where Shrimataji, you know, took an interest or became
Mm,
started to give advice. And I gave Shrimataji a cassette and CD that I had worked on of songs, and so she pointed at it. She said, "Oh, you're very creative." And then she tapped it and said, "Why don't you go to India, learn Indian music, and mix it with the Western songs?" And she got
mm,
very animated, and she said she looked off in the distance and said, "If you bring in the sitar, for instance, at the beginning, then you can bring it back in the middle." And then she said, "Weave it in and out," and her eyes got large and she got extremely animated. She could, as if she could envision the whole album right
mm,
then and there. And then she said, "So go to, I'll put the mic a little closer. So go to Nagpur, which is there was a music academy in Nagpur, and you can learn from Guruji, who was the violinist who just passed, and her brother, Baba Mama, at the time was running the academy. He was a lyricist, and he wrote qawwalis and poems and things. So I did, and I learned Sarod. And within 3 months, I also wrote an album. It was called Universal Silence. And as Srimataji had described, they all were songs that had this kind of beautiful mix of, Eastern and Western music. And we recorded both the students who were taking courses there and also the teachers themselves, like Guruji and many others. So it was a nice mixture of the teachers and the students, and there were the songs I had written there, and so that was one experience. I suppose that really got me excited about living in India, and then I ended up getting invited. It was, how did it work? I think I got a scholarship, and I think one thing led to the other. Someone had seen Amjad Ali Khan play and saw him after the concert, and then it told him about me and said, "Are you accepting students?" And then he said, "Yeah, I'd love to get to know him and ask him to apply for a scholarship." So I did, and I got the scholarship and ended up being able to study in India, the Sarod with Ustad Amjad Ali
mm,
Khan. And at that time, Shrimataji was spending time in the winters in India and then coming to the West in the summers, which actually is the schedule of most Indian classical musicians. And I'd started to live the same life and literally, was on sort of every, it was kind of ending up in every city that Shrimataji traveled to. And then one time I was in, even when I didn't try, even when I wasn't trying to do that, it just happened. And so one time I was in Dubai. My flight was from Mumbai to London, and I, regrettably left India. I was feeling kind of sad to leave. I had such an incredible experience and a lot to sort of deal with the West. And a bit of a heavy heart when I looked at the flights to London. I was just a few hours from getting on a flight to London from Dubai, and I decided to call the Sahaj the leader at the time in Dubai, and he said, "Did you know Shrimataji is arriving in just an hour? Can you
wow.
stay?" And so I said, "Yeah, of course." And so I stayed, and then we had a little celebration the next day in a small apartment, and Shimaji asked me to go to Turkey. And so I said, of course. Now, again, when I said, of course, I had no idea of how I was going to do it because I really didn't have any money at that point. It was the end of the, the scholarship, there wasn't a lot of money, and I'd been there not working, but just studying. So I really didn't know how I was going to get to Turkey. My flight was to London. I didn't think I could switch it. I knew it would cost money. And so, it was a leap of faith. And, I had some doubts. I admit it. I think I said, of course, at the time, but then probably thought about it. But went ahead and put my name on a standby list anyway and went to the airport the next morning. And then as I asked the ticket person, she said, okay, your name's in the computer. And then she looked it up a little bit more. And just at that moment, Shimaji passed behind us. And it was almost like suspended time. You could smell the jasmine in the air. And then it was almost an eternal moment. And then suddenly I kind of woke up out of that when the ticket lady said, Mr. Day, Mr. Day. And then I said, yes, yes. And she said, well, we can get you on the flight, but, and I thought, it's going to be $1,000, right? We can get you on the flight, but you'll have to fly first class. And is that okay? So I said, of course. And there I was on a flight to Turkey with Shimaji in first class, red plush seats. It was Emirates Air, beautiful, just what you might dream of. Exotic lands, sort of velvety seat covers, and incredible food. Then we arrived in Turkey, and I was pushing Shimaji's wheelchair. They gave her the visa. I realized, I don't have a visa. I was an American passport. You need a visa to get in. And at that point, I just didn't think about it. I had stopped doubting the process. I stopped thinking, and I just put my hand on the wheelchair. And when Shimaji was ready, I pushed the wheelchair. Next thing I knew, I was smelling Turkish coffee. And then there was some people in the collective. They always meet Shimaji as soon as they can, and they all bring in flowers. And then they had a tray of Turkish delight, which is the most delicious Turkish delight I've ever tasted. So there's a story about, actually cutting to the chase, the evolution of my music and how it was connected with Shimaji directly. And that story is really about developing doubtless awareness. Yeah. The first story was about, just inkling and getting a bit thoughtless. But this story is really about learning to not doubt, to surrender. And then incredible miracles can happen along the way.
Yeah, so. That's lovely. Well, I don't know where we stand with time, but did you...
We have any chat questions out there? Anybody out there in the chat?
Yeah, I don't know.
Anybody still there?
Everybody's still here.
That's good. I usually finish with a song.
You had a Western song that you prepared?
Yeah, I can do that. Are there any questions out there? We like to interaction, if people want to do that. Anything's possible. Anything's good. Anything is acceptable.
Yeah.
And so tell us your story out there. If you're listening, you can get in the chat. Why not tell us your story? I mean, I got personal and told you all about my dad and some of my emotional roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
I'm not high and mighty. I'm just a guy who struggled a lot and, kind of luckily found this at a young age, and then struggled a lot more, quite frankly. A lot of ways, I struggled a long time. It took me a long, long time to get to the end of that story where my dad and I looked each other in the eye and my settled. Yeah. Everybody's different, and I found that the one constant I've had throughout all of this is we call it holding on to the sorry, and I've kept this meditation going through all my ups and downs and struggles and this and that and all that. And the life of an artist is not so easy. It's not a path that's very predictable, and so it leads to a lot of it can lead to a lot of tumult. So I took that harder path, but and I'm happy I did, but it hasn't been easy. So everybody's story is different, and we'd love to hear from you. But I'll play a song. This song is really dedicated to all the seekers. It's called "Find a Way," and the way is what I call, if we take the road less traveled, well then, at some point that sort of merges into your method and your way, and then your way is guided by the light, and then there's no doubt, as I spoke about before. So that's really what this song is about, is finding a way, finding your spiritual way, and just finding a way to do it, finding a way to get through and keep going like I did, no matter what. And so that's what the song's about. And looks like we got some nice comments in the chat. I'll just adjust the mic a little bit here. And if you want to read a couple out while I get the mic going, if there's anything out there that's good.
We've got some nice comments in the chat. It looks like your story has really resonated with me.
Yeah. That's good. Both of them? Sometimes I feel the first one's a little too long, but it is what it is.
There's a request to tell the name of the raga again.
The first one was Rag Dadabadi, Darbari, and that you can put in the chat. And the second one was for Shiva, and that is Bhairav, Bhairav. And what you can do, what I did is my YouTube channel, which, I don't get any money for. I have subscribers on there, but I just dedicated it to people listening. What I did is I learned a lot of ragas from watching YouTube videos and slowing them down. And I developed, different ragas for different times of day, morning ragas. And you've heard a raga that is specifically for the Sastrar. You've heard a raga that is related to Sri Shiva. You hear the difference of them. So if you go on my YouTube channel and there's categories: morning raga, evening raga, late night raga, afternoon raga. So if you're in the morning, for instance, and you want to hear a morning raga, just click on the playlist, and there's all the ragas that I learned from, and some of the artists played in front of Shrimataji. There's a couple of my pieces, some from my teacher, some from different instruments, not only sarod, although of course I tend to be, there's a lot of sarod. But there's other pieces. You pick your own, make your own playlists, and have a great time. The idea is just let it play, let it play all morning. It's a long process. It's not a pop song. So anyway, that's in the chat too, youtube.com/Stephen Day Music, STEPHEN, Stephen Day Music. I think it's in the chat. So. And then I think the lyrics are going to pop up in the this song. It's called "Find a Way." And all is quiet and everything's clear. The way we spend all our days is so very dear. And our dreams are coming through today. If you go down, yeah, now together we'll find a way. We'll find a way. Empress Moon, with city jewels on her chest. The light embraces the night, and so we are blessed. And it helps us to see what will be, will be. Children laughing, carousels in the park. Their dreams come through in their screams, alone after dark. And the generations are coming through today. Here you go now, well you know now, together we'll find a way. We'll find a way. Forests burn, and then they grow again. Tables turn, and then you lose to win. We'll find on our way. We'll find on our way. Find on our way. We'll find it on our way.
Thank you. It's very appropriate that on this hot day that our hearts are filled with enjoyment from this lovely music. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank
we
you,
should probably wrap up at this point because the poor people on the East Coast are getting late.
Oh my gosh, it's Saturday night and it's past 10. 10 o'clock, you guys, you should be in bed by now. Come on.
Right.
All good, but I appreciate everything from everybody and all the great comments in the chat. And I really appreciate a big shout out to Sahaj Yoga, Sahaj Yogis there in Texas, the Meditate Anytime group, and including the team, yourself, Alan, and Sham, and Stella, and folks behind the scenes that make this all possible. They spend time with the sound checks. They're doing all the digging up and getting things together to make this all possible. So a real shout out to you guys, putting on these programs all week long. And there's another one tomorrow, right? There's one more?
Yep, I think so.
Yeah. And they're every month as well. So I imagine you're probably putting that in the chat, let people know. And there's also 21 days courses. So a lot of chances to take part in the meditation and yoga. Online these days seems to be a real good alternative, and also there's centers everywhere in most cities. And I think you look up, you're going to put a website in there. I think it's sahajyoga.usa, but don't listen to me because I don't remember what it is. But
yes, hopefully it won't be so difficult for people to find us as you had to look for that poster.
Yeah, that was a bit more dramatic. So, hey, thank you again for everything, and happy Shivaratri weekend.
Yes. All right. Thanks, everybody.